The death of a child is always a heartbreaking event. This is something that should never happen, but when it is done deliberately at the hands of their very own parent, that is something that is on a whole other level.
On a Wednesday morning in July, firemen found Judith and her mother Maria murdered by Judith's father, József Barsi. Barsi then set fire to the house, went into the garage, and took his own life.
On the outside looking in, Judith Barsi seemed to have it all. She was born on June the 6th, 1978 in sunny Los Angeles, California. And at just 10 years old, she had been in 72 commercials, several TV shows, such as Cheers, as well as big screen movies, such as All Dogs Go to Heaven, The Revenge, Jaws 4, Slam Dance, and many others. Also, hauntingly, Judith played a daughter murdered by her father in the 1984 miniseries Fatal Vision. Judith's voice was also used in animated movies such as The Land Before Time and All Dogs Go to Heaven. But Judith's home life was not so buttoned up and beautiful due to her very vengeful and alcoholic father, József.
Joe's daughter from his first marriage, Ági, points to the beginning of his life in Hungary and his illegitimate birth.
Back in Hungary, if you don't have a father, I mean, that's just like the plague. And so when he would go to school, kids would make fun of him, always make fun of him. And my father had absolutely no self-esteem. The only time my father really felt like he was a person was when he was drunk.
After Joe's violence-filled marriage to Ági's mother ended in a bitter divorce, he entered another abusive relationship with Maria Virovacz.
Maria came from an alcoholic family, an abusive family. Her father physically abused her and psychologically abused her.
Soon, this couple, each of whom had had a tormented childhood, had a child of their own, Judith.
At 5 years old, Judith was spotted at a San Fernando Valley ice skating rink by some Hollywood journalists, and due to her very small and petite size, she was assumed by the journalists to be around maybe 3 years old. But her small size did not hurt her chances of stardom in the least. It actually helped them tremendously. She would go on to be cast in 72 different TV commercials, such as Donald Duck Orange Juice, Campbell's Soup, Jif Peanut Butter, and even Toys R Us. That is just a few. She was a natural, and the camera and the audiences just loved her very cute face and her spunky little attitude. Casting directors were enchanted by her small size, and since it let her play younger characters, it was ideal for movie sets. Judith was so small, in fact, that she had to receive hormonal injections just to help her grow. When she was 10 years old, she was still playing a 7- and 8-year-old. Her $100,000 a year income meant that her family could buy a modest 3-bedroom house in the West Hills of Hollywood in 1985. Her mother, Maria, was determined to guide her daughter towards a career in acting.
She had an obsession with having her child become a star. That's all she really thought of.
She's preparing.
She taught Judith about posture and poise and how to speak properly. Maria's brother, Joseph Weldon, told her at the time, "I would not waste my time. I told her that the chances are 1 in 10,000 that she would succeed in such a large acting world for children." Maria,
This little girl, when she was 2 years old, she told me she's going to make a star out of her. I said, you should not do that. I said, you don't know the odds. I said, the odds are 10,000 to 1.
Thea also done everything that she could to make sure that Judith had a normal kid's childhood. She even kept her in public schools, encouraged her to play outside and ride her bike and get dirty, play board games, and even taught her how to knit. And whenever one of Judith's movies or commercials were set to air, her mom would pop them some popcorn and they would huddle up together in the living room unless her father József was home. If he was home, they would go to Judith's bedroom to watch it together. Judith was a happy and cheerful little girl most of her life, but in 1985, those around her started noticing that she was starting to be withdrawn, and her spunky little attitude had vanished when the cameras were not rolling. Judith's agent, Ruth Hansen, described her as a bubbly, happy little girl, but her mood changed in the last year of her life. Before she left the U.S. to go to the Bahamas to film Jaws 4: The Revenge, her father threatened her with a knife, saying, "If you decide not to come back, I will cut your throat."
The hatred was mutual between the two adults.
Hansen said she witnessed Judith's dad telling her, "Remember what I told you before you left." Judith was absolutely terrified of her father for saying this, and she started crying. 2 months later, after the filming of the movie was completed, Judith and her mother returned home and the abuse continued.
The last time I went and visited them, it was really hard because I saw her. We were the same person. It was just incredible. At that time, I really saw how afraid she was. I mean, he used to threaten us all the time, too, about burning the house down, killing us and burning the house down if we left him, or if my mother tried divorcing him, that he would kill us all. She told me over and over again that she was afraid.
On one occasion, Judith's mother bought her a kite, which her dad tried to grab out of her hands. When little Judith tried to protect her toy, he called her a spoiled little brat, and he broke it to pieces right in front of her. Soon, Judith's home abuse began to seep into her day-to-day life. She even plucked out all of her eyebrows and her eyelashes, and she even de-whiskered their cat.
So what she did out of being so nervous and fearful, she pulled out her eyelashes, she pulled out her cat's whiskers, and it's just a nervous habit, being nervous. She needed some way to release that tension.
Judith told her friends that she was afraid to go home, saying, "My daddy is drunk every day, and I know he wants to kill me and my mother." And shortly before an audition in May of 1988, she became hysterical, which really alarmed her agent. Her agent said, "That is when I realized how bad Judith was. She was crying hysterically and she couldn't even talk."
Before they left, he came into Judy's bedroom, closed the door, and took this kitchen knife and put it against her throat and told her that if you and your mother don't come back after the shooting, I'm going to cut your throat.
A friend of József's, Peter Kivlin, told the LA Times that he had told him more than 500 times that he was going to kill his wife. He went on to say that he would try to calm him down, and he'd tell him, "If you kill her, what's going to happen to your little girl?" And he replied, "Well, I got to kill her too."
Joe Barsi would come, and the first thing was to my husband, "I'm going to kill that whore. One of these days, I'm going to kill her."
Other neighbors claimed that he said he would kill himself and Judith and leave Maria alive just so she could suffer. Many of Maria's friends tried to help, but she refused, even turning down the chance to stay at one of her friends' homes to get away from him.
Maria did not work, and there was some concern, I think, if she ran off and left the husband and removed Judith from the business, she was losing a source of income. the income is just in excess of what you would think a child should be or could be earning. She was reluctant for that reason to completely take her and go into hiding. So that was not even an option. It was not even a consideration.
Maria had come up with her own plan of escape. Joe was obsessive about cleanliness. She hoped to drive him from the house by allowing it to become a filthy mess.
She let the house get so messy. I mean, it was disgusting. The first thing I said was, let's clean it up. She's like, no, because it'll drive my father crazy. That was were her own words. It's going to drive him crazy. It'll drive him out of the house if we don't clean up. So it was a pigspen, a living pigspen.
In May of 1988, Judith's agent saw for the very first time how bad Judith really was. Judith was scheduled for an audition, but started crying hysterically, and she couldn't talk. And so Hanson urged Maria to take her daughter to a psychologist. The psychologist reported Judith's case to the CPS, who were told by Maria that she had plans to divorce her husband and move out of the family home.
But just as Judith was finally about to get help from the county, Maria saw another way out. Her niece remembers.
Well, I spoke around Christmas time with my aunt on the telephone, and she was very encouraged about the turn of events. She was very happy that her situation at home was improving because her husband had found another woman, and he was running around with her, and this woman was very well off. And she said she would see a lawyer about it, and she was looking into getting divorced, and that this is the best thing that had happened to her.
Judith's agent saw her suffering too and sent her to a psychiatrist. After just one session, the psychiatrist reported Judith to the authorities as an abused child.
Maria hesitated to leave her home and her husband, both out of fear for her safety and a reluctance to abandon the life that she had built with him. She would say, I can't, because he will come after us and he will kill us. And he's threatened to burn the house down. Now, this is what she told a neighbor. But Maria's hesitation in leaving her husband proved fatal.
And I was trying to tell her, get out, go. The house is not important. Just take Judy and be safe. And she says, no, they've worked too hard for the house. The house was theirs. And if anyone was going to leave, it was going to be my father.
Joseph was very resentful of his daughter's success. He was also an alcoholic that grew very violent when he had that very first drink. He was both controlling and abusive to both Maria and Judith, threatening them each time they left their home, warning them that if they did not come back, that he would kill them. Maria actually filed a police report against her husband in December of 1986, accusing him of threatening to kill her and choking her and hitting her in the face. But police found no visible injuries, so she was eventually pressed to just drop those charges against her husband. Maria was very frightened of József.
She was just constantly crying out about how concerned she was and how threatened she felt, almost to the point where nobody took her seriously. It was like, oh, here goes Maria again, just worried about going home to this crazy person.
At that point, Judy dropped the phone and went to the bedroom, and my little daughter followed her, and both of them were crying because she was so frantic that I never saw such a thing. And Maria picked up the phone, and then Maria was going out of her mind, really. She was really scared.
And back in the 80s, domestic violence was still just a dirty family secret and not taken serious at all by law enforcement or any other agency for that matter. Back then, people did not want to get involved in other folks' business and tried to stay out of things and let them sort it out themselves and not be busybodies. Domestic violence was looked at as more of a private family matter back then. But towards the end of her life, Maria started to get a plan of action in place to get some space from her abusive husband. She had rented an apartment in May where she would spend the days with Judith before returning home at night. Maria always hesitated to move out permanently, afraid of what József may do when he found them. On July the 25th, 1988, Judith at this time was 10 years old. She had an audition for Hanna-Barbera for a leading role in an upcoming cartoon series. She had went to bed early and was very excited to attend the audition the next day. But just before it was time for her to get up and her mother go to the audition, Judith's father quietly crept into her room as she slept, and he stood above her bed, and he shot his sleeping daughter in the head. Maria, who had never left Judith alone with her father ever, heard the shot, and she came running down the hallway towards her bedroom, but was met by József, who turned the weapon onto her. Evidence showed that Maria had tried to protect her head and face from the shot with her hands to her face and head. József then spent the next 2 days in the home with his deceased wife and child. And then on July the 27th, he poured gasoline on both of their bodies, and he set the home ablaze. As the fire caught up, József walked out into the garage, and he took his own life with a gunshot to the head. A nearby neighbor who happened to be outside watering her plants heard the shot. She called police.
Augie and Maria's brother believe they know what happened in her final hours from their knowledge of the family and the police reports.
He decided to do this Monday night sometimes after they went to bed.
He couldn't have anyone take the kids away. If he couldn't have her, then no one else would.
He decided to go in first to Judy's room, and he sat next to her, and he put the 38 to her head, and he shot through her head.
He just snapped. He absolutely snapped.
Of course, there was a loud explosion. Maria ran out of her bedroom.
It's just obvious that they had to have a struggle in the hallway.
He shot her also, and she was down lying there.
The police believe that after he murdered his wife and daughter, Joe Barsi wandered alone through the house for nearly 2 days.
My father always thought that he'd be left alone, and he was scared to death to be left alone, just like he was when he was a little boy.
They found Joe Barsi in a garage on his back with his revolver on his chest with a shot through his head.
Judith's funeral was truly humbling. Lance Guest, who had played her father in the movie Jaws, was one of her pallbearers. Actresses and sisters Tracy, Missy, and Brandy Gold. Brandy had worked with Judith on the television miniseries Fatal Vision, in which Eerily, Judith had played the part of a young girl murdered by her father. The Gold girls actually read the eulogy. They read a poem titled, "A Child of Mine." Judith was buried with her mother at Forest Lawn in the Hollywood Hills in a grave that would be unmarked until fans banded together, paid for, and arranged for a marker in 2004. It is unknown until today what happened to Judith's father's remains. While Judy's story is a cautionary tale of sorts, one that shows domestic violence knows no boundaries insofar as race, culture, and income levels, she can be remembered fondly as the sweet little girl on screen in Jaws 4, or who voiced Ducky in The Land Before Time. Judith's final role, giving her voice to a little dinosaur named Ducky in The Land Before Time, which was released after she died. Ducky's signature line, "Yep, yep, yep," was put on her gravestone. She was a great little actress who had a wonderful future ahead until it was robbed by a person who should have loved and protected her the very most. Though Judith died in July of 1988, she lived on through her acting. There was actually 2 of her animated films that came out after her death. Of course, The Land Before Time in 1988 and All Dogs Go to Heaven in 1989.
Hello. I said hello. What is your name? You want to go with me? Yeah. Oh, oh, yes. I do. Do you think my family went to the Great Valley too? Huh? Maybe. My mother said it's where all the herds were going. Oh, I hope. My name's Littlefoot. Mine is Ducky. Yep, that is what it is. Yep. It's you.
Yeah. I'll miss you too, Squeaker. Now you go to sleep.
Charlie, will I ever see you again?
Sure you will, kid. You know, goodbyes aren't forever.
Then, goodbye, Charlie. I love you.
Yeah.
I'll lend you for a little time a child of mine, he said, for you to love the while she lives and mourn for when she's dead. She'll bring her charms to gladden you, and should her stay be brief, you'll have her lively memories as solace for your grief. Judith, we just want to say that we love you and we all miss you very much.
His family abandoned him, and with Marika leaving him, that he was going to be abandoned again, and he couldn't take that hurt. So I think that's the reason why he killed them.
Thank you all so much for listening. And until next time, this is UnJustified.